I've hauled freight through every kind of weather this country can spit at a man. But nothing tightens your chest like the moment flashing blues light up your mirrors on a quiet stretch of road. Two officers stepped out like they were kicking off a TV raid, hands on belts, chins high, that practice swagger you only see in small towns where nobody usually pushes back. The older one, Sergeant Halpern, leaned into my window, smirked at my Dashcam like it was a toy, and dropped a line so arrogant it damn near echoed inside the cab. "We make the rules here." That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with a traffic stop. I was dealing with a power play. And the whole time he barked orders and fake laws, I kept my voice steady and my cameras rolling. Because I've learned one thing in all my miles: the truth needs witnesses. Most folks don't realize how fast a cop's story can steamroll your whole life. Your record, your job, your freedom, all before you even make it home for dinner. But what these two didn't know was I had something stronger than their bluster and threats of arrest. 3 angles of clean, time-stamped footage, and only 72 hours before my Dashcam started auto-overwriting it. So while they kept piling on intimidation, claiming powers they didn't have, twisting laws they didn't understand, I was quietly building the exact evidence that would flip this whole thing inside out. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they set the rules. They had no idea they'd just stepped into the one thing I never argue about on the road. What the camera sees, the camera remembers. I've been chasing white lines across America for close to 3 decades, and if there's one thing the road teaches you, it's how to read a situation before it fully shows its face. The sky, the shoulders, the subtle tilt of a patrol car tucked behind a billboard. You learn to see patterns. You learn to feel when something ain't just a routine stop waiting to happen, but something else, something heavier in the air. That evening, the wind coming across the flat farmland felt thick, like the air itself was holding its breath. I'd been running load of palletized electronics from Ohio to the Carolina line. Nothing hazardous, nothing unusual. I wasn't speeding, my logs were clean, tread solid, lights checked, weight perfect. I was as straight as a man can run a rig. But all the same, the back of my neck prickled like I'd stepped under a street light that suddenly went dark. People who've never driven a semi don't realize how much of your life hangs on the thin thread of other folks' decisions. A trooper in a bad mood, a deputy trying to impress a supervisor. One wrong conversation at the wrong shoulder can knock your whole world sideways. Lose your CDL, you lose your job. Lose your job, you lose the home, the truck payment, the insurance. Everything trickles down. So while I'm not scared of cops, I'm damn sure wary of the ones who walk up to a cab thinking their badge turns asphalt into their own private kingdom. And in the last few years, I'd noticed an uptick in these small-town power sheriffs who play cowboy with out-of-state drivers. They know you don't know the area, they assume you don't know the law, and they figure they can squeeze you because you're miles from your own jurisdiction, miles from your company office, miles from any backup except whatever you can prove with a clean voice and a clear recording. I run 3 cameras at all times: a forward dash cam that logs speed, time, GPS, and audio if I enable it, a cab cam that shows my posture, hands, and mirror angles, and my phone, which I can slip into a little rubber mount on the steering wheel. People say that's overkill, but it only takes one bad stop to learn what's at stake. The footage isn't for drama, it's for survival. And that night, when I eased onto a quiet rural 2-lane to give my eyes a break from the interstate, just a little breather, nothing more, my cameras came on like they always do. I'd parked on a wide gravel shoulder near an abandoned feed store, nose angled toward the road so I could pull out clean. I stretched, drank some water, checked my Qualcomm for updated dispatch notes, and let my shoulders relax. There wasn't a soul around except a distant pair of headlights moving slow in the opposite lane. I didn't even register them as anything special until they slowed, then slowed more, then dipped onto the opposite shoulder for a moment like they were observing me. Then they turned around. No rush, no urgency, just that lazy U-turn of somebody who suddenly found a reason to take an interest. I muttered, "Here we go," and adjusted my phone angle. 2 minutes later, blue lights flared behind me, washing the inside of my cab in a cold electric glow. Not one cruiser, two. One parked damn near perpendicular to my trailer, boxing me in. The other angled tight up front like they were running some kind of felony stop on a man who'd only been sipping warm water and checking load notes. Officer Delgado stepped out first, young, too young to be carrying the kind of swagger he tried to wear. His vest looked oversized like it belonged to someone else. He walked up slow, tapping his flashlight against his thigh, trying to build a rhythm of authority he hadn't earned yet. He didn't say anything at first, just scanned my windshield like he was searching for a reason he didn't have. But the real storm came from the second door. Sergeant Halpern didn't step out so much as emerge, like he'd been waiting his whole life for a stage. Big man, but not in a solid way, more like he'd gone soft under the armor. Thick jaw, gray at the temples, the kind of eyes that stay half-lidded because he's used to folks dropping their gaze before he has to do any real work. He rolled his shoulders once, cracked his neck, and strutted toward my cab like he was walking into a saloon showdown he already knew the ending to. Delgado cleared his throat. "Good evening, sir. Need your license?" And Halpern cut him off with a sharp grunt. "No, step back, Delgado. I'll handle this." The kid obeyed instantly. Halpern leaned in, close enough that I could smell peppermint gum and stale coffee. "Gonna need your license, registration, logbook, and medical card." He didn't even pretend to offer a reason. I looked down the shoulder. "Sergeant, this lane's straight for half a mile. Nothing to block?" His eyes narrowed. "Did I ask you what the sight line is? I said you're blocking it, and I said I need your documents. All of them." I kept my hands visible on the wheel. "Before I hand anything over, I'd like to know the reason for the stop." Halpern smirked, an ugly, slow side smile that told me he'd been waiting for that line. "The reason," he said, drawing the word out like a teacher scolding a slow student, "is whatever I say it is. Out here," he pointed at the ground between us, "we make the rules. I don't care how many miles you've driven, hearing those words will put a stone in your gut. Not because you're scared, but because you know exactly what kind of fight you've just stepped into. The kind that doesn't end on the shoulder." Delgado hovered behind him, shifting from foot to foot, glancing nervously at my dashcam's glowing red light. Halpern noticed. "Turn that damn thing off," he barked. "It's a dashcam. It runs automatically." "You heard me." He jabbed a finger toward the windshield. "Turn it off, now." I stayed steady. "I'm allowed to record my interactions, Sergeant." He leaned in even closer until the brim of his hat almost touched my window. "Not when I tell you you're not," he growled. "You're interfering with a lawful order by refusing to comply. You want to go to jail tonight? Because I can make that happen real fast." Delgado swallowed hard, trying to follow Halpern's lead. "Yeah, refusal to obey is an arrestable offense," he added, voice cracking slightly. "That's not accurate, and you know it." Halpern's jaw twitched. "Don't correct my officer. I'm just stating the law." He slammed his palm on the doorframe, causing my cab to shiver. "I am the law out here." My fingers tightened around the wheel, but I kept my tone neutral. "Sergeant, I'm not refusing anything. I'm asking for the legal basis of the stop." Halpern scoffed. "Legal basis?" He threw a sharp laugh over his shoulder at Delgado. "Hear that? We got ourselves a little YouTube lawyer." Delgado forced a weak chuckle. Halpern squared up again. "Last chance, driver. Turn off the camera, hand over your license, or step out of the truck." "My cameras stay on," I said, "for both our protection." That's when he dropped his face into the window's shadow and hissed, "Turn it off. You don't need to be recording us." "I do," I said, "for accountability." He straightened, features twisting with irritation. "You think you're going to tell me about accountability? Boy, you better rethink how you're talking to me. Because if I say you're interfering, then you're interfering. And if I say you're obstructing, then guess what? You're obstructing." He stepped back and motioned aggressively for Delgado to circle the truck. "Search the perimeter. I want to know what he's hiding." Delgado hesitated. Sarge, don't we need probable cause to—" Halpern cut him off. "If I tell you to search, you search. Don't make me repeat myself." The kid nodded quickly and started circling my rig, flashlight jittering with nerves. Halpern leaned in once more. "Now, documents. All of them." I kept my voice even. "Sergeant, before providing anything, I want to confirm, am I being detained?" His smile vanished. His eyes hardened. "You're damn right you are." "For what crime?" "For whatever I say. And if you don't stop asking questions, that crime's going to get real specific, real fast." He took a breath, puffing himself up. "Give me your license or step out. Those are your only two options." I slowly reached one hand toward my phone mount just to adjust its angle. Halpern immediately slapped the doorframe again. "Hey, don't reach for anything unless I tell you." His voice exploded across the empty road. "I'm adjusting my phone so it doesn't fall," he snapped. "You're adjusting nothing until I say so." Delgado's flashlight jittered around the rear tires. "Sarge, nothing suspicious back here." "Then look harder," Halpern barked, not breaking eye contact with me. The whole scene had edged past confrontation into something uglier, something that wasn't about safety or law or even ego anymore. It was about control. Total, unquestioning, blind control. And that's when I knew this stop was going to get worse before it got better. Because men like Sergeant Halpern don't calm down when you follow the law. They only calm down when they think they've broken you. And I had no intention of breaking. Halpern's radio crackled on his shoulder, some dispatch voice murmuring in the background, but he ignored it like nothing, and nobody outranked the story he was building in his head. He lifted the mic anyway, eyes still locked on me. "Dispatch, this is Unit 3, he said, tone flat. "I've got a non-compliant commercial driver on the shoulder, possible obstruction and suspicious behavior. Stand by." Non-compliant, suspicious. He was laying tracks, not reporting facts. I felt my heartbeat climb up into my throat, but you not show that. Not to a man like him. You tuck it down, sit still, breathe slow. My hand stayed on the wheel. My eyes flicked just once to the little red LED on the dashcam, then to the screen of my phone. The images were steady. The audio icon was solid. Cabcam's tiny blue light glowed over my right shoulder. All three witnesses awake. Here's the thing. You can't win a yelling match with a badge, a gun, and a radio. You can't out-bark a guy who writes the paperwork about what happened. But you can out-record him. You can out-remember him. That was the plan I had been growing quietly over the last couple years, ever since I watched more than one video of some poor driver getting railroaded because his word alone didn't weigh as much as an officer's narrative. So I made a decision then. I wouldn't argue with him. Not in the way he wanted. I wouldn't give him the scene he was trying to direct. I'd give him something better, at least better for me. I'd give him rope. "Final time," Halpern said, voice lower, controlled. "License, registration, logbook, medical card. We're not negotiating." "Sergeant," I said, keeping my tone level, "I'm willing to comply with lawful orders. I just want clarification on what law you believe I'm violating." His eyes flared. "You don't demand anything from me. You don't get answers until I get compliance. That's how this works. Delgado." The rookie flinched. "Yes, Sarge. If he won't hand it over, we take it to the next step." Delgado was confused, like nobody had ever actually explained to him what the next step legally was. Do you want him out of the vehicle?" Halpern's nostrils flared. "Yeah, driver, step out now. You're being detained for investigation." "What investigation?"
I asked. He slammed his hand on the metal again, louder this time. "Don't play dumb. You're blocking the view of the intersecting road, you're loitering on a state-maintained shoulder, and you're refusing a lawful order to provide identification. That's more than enough for an investigatory detention." There it was, that phrase he'd picked up from some slideshow and was now wielding like a sword. Not one bit of it matched what the law actually said, but he said it with full conviction, so you knew he believed he could bluff it into reality. "I'm not refusing," I said. "I'm asking for clarification, and I'm staying in my cab until I understand what's going on, for my safety." He chuckled once, but there was no humor in it. "For your safety?" He straightened. "You really think you're in danger for me?" I didn't answer that, because the patch on his chest and the way he was talking were already answering it for him. "You know what?" he said, straightening his vest. "We're done being nice. Delgado, witness this. Driver, I am ordering you, under the authority of State Vehicle Code and Terry v. Ohio, to exit this truck. Failure to comply is obstruction and will result in your arrest. Do you understand?" He didn't know Terry from a tire iron, but he'd heard the name somewhere and it sounded official. I let a beat of silence stretch, giving the cameras time to drink in his words. "I'm not refusing," I said. "I'm asking for clarification, and I'm staying in my cab until I understand what's going on." He chuckled once, but there was no humor in it. "This guy," he muttered. "You really think you're going to get cute with court language on the side of my road?" He jabbed his thumb toward his chest. "I am clarity. I am the law out here." Delgado shifted again, stepping closer to my door like backup muscle. The rookie's hand hovered a little too near his holster. Not resting on it, not yet, but close enough that I made sure the cab cam had a good angle. "Sergeant," I said quietly, "for your sake and mine, I'm keeping the cameras running." "Yeah," he sneered. "Well, for your sake, I'm telling you, if you post any of this online, the department's going to come down on you so hard, you won't know which way's up. We'll seize that footage as evidence, and you'll be glad if all you walk away with is a ticket." I filed those words away. Seize the footage. Come down on you. It all sounded real ugly when you stacked it against the fact that I'd been doing exactly nothing but stretching my legs and checking my dispatch messages when they rolled up. That's when the genius part of my plan stopped being just a habit and became a strategy. I reminded myself, don't argue the law. Don't try to change his mind. You're not going to. Just get him talking. Get him confident enough to spell out exactly how he thinks the world works. Then later, when cooler heads and actual lawyers looked at the footage, they'd see the gap between what he believed and what was real. That gap was where justice lived. So I shifted just enough that my phone caught more of his face and asked, "Sergeant, are you saying I'm not allowed to record you?" He smirked. "I'm saying if I tell you not to, that's the rule. We make the rules here. Me. Not you. Not whatever YouTube channel you think is going to turn you into a hero. We're done having this conversation. Out of the truck. Right now." His hand moved toward the door handle. I hit the lock button with my thumb. Delgado flinched like I'd drawn a weapon. "Whoa, whoa," he said, hand now actually resting on his holster. "Sarge, He locked it," Halpern said, voice low and deadly calm. "That's fine. We can do this the hard way. Driver, unlock this door, or I will consider this active obstruction of a lawful order. You will be removed and you will go to jail. You won't be finishing whatever run you think you're on tonight." That was the real card he thought he had. My schedule, my load, my livelihood. They know how tied drivers are to delivery windows and company penalties. He thought he threatened the clock and he could make me fold. "You know my name?" I asked. He He blinked. "What? You know my name?" I repeated. "I don't need your name to take you in. We'll sort that at booking." "So you're threatening arrest," I said, more to the cameras than to him, "without knowing my name, without stating a crime, and while telling me I'm not allowed to record." He rolled his eyes. "God, you auditors all sound the same." That word auditors lit a little spark in my chest. So he knew this kind of thing got filmed. He knew there were channels out there that dissected this behavior, and he still chose to say it out loud. "Who said I'm an auditor?" I asked quietly. "You did," he snapped, "the second you started trying to lecture me about rights and cameras and clarification." He made finger quotes so sarcastic they might as well have dripped poison. "You boys all think if you say, 'Am I being detained?' enough times, you turn into a lawyer. Newsflash, you don't. Out here, my word is the law until a judge tells me otherwise. And by the time you see that judge, your truck will be an impound and your company will be on the phone asking why they employ a problem driver." He was building a whole fiction right there on my step, and he was proud of it. I took a long breath. "Sergeant Halpern," I said, pronouncing his name slow so the mic caught every syllable. "I am not refusing a lawful order. I'm asking you to state clearly what you suspect me of, and I'm informing you that my cameras are running. That's all." His jaw clenched so hard his temple twitched. For a second, I thought he might reach in and grab me. Instead, he straightened, looked back at Delgado, and said, "Fine, we'll do the paperwork later. For now, he's obstructing. Call for a tow. He's not driving this thing out of here tonight." Delgado's eyes widened. "A tow, Sarge? On a commercial?" "Did I stutter?" Halpern barked. "Tow! Now!" The kid scrambled back to the rear cruiser, fumbling for his radio. I watched him in the side mirror, saw his mouth moving, saw his finger pressing the transmit button. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I didn't need to. The cameras would pick up enough of it. Commercial tow, non-compliant driver, obstruction. I'd hear it all later when I scrubbed the audio.
My chest tightened again. A tow on a rig like mine meant hours, maybe days of chaos. Impound fees, storage, explaining to dispatch, explaining to safety. Even if I beat it in court, the immediate hit would be real. This wasn't just ego anymore. He was going for my livelihood. That's when I realized I needed more than just footage of him being a jerk. I needed a clean log of his threats, his exact words about making the rules, and something that tied it all to policy. Something that showed, beyond any blue wall spin, that he wasn't just mistaken, he was willfully rewriting reality. So I changed tactics, just a hair. "Sergeant," I said, voice softer, "you're telling me my cameras are a problem, but your body cam's running too, right?" For the first time, something like caution flickered across his face. "Don't worry about what's running on my side," he said. "You guys have policies for that," I continued, still calm. "Recording, retention, all that." His gaze sharpened. "You been reading our policy manual, driver?" "No. But I know most departments have to log any detention, especially one where you threaten arrest and a tow on a commercial vehicle." He stepped closer again, but this time there was a hairline crack in his voice. "I don't threaten, son. I promise. You keep pushing, you're going to see what that looks like. I just want everything documented accurately." He stuck his face so close to the glass I could see the tiny veins in his eyes. "You want documentation? You're going to get documentation. And when you're standing in front of a judge in cuffs, explaining why you wouldn't obey a simple order from a lawful authority, we're going to see whose evidence matters." He did the finger quotes again, this time for evidence. Something inside me settled. Not fear, not anger, just a kind of grim clarity. I was looking at a man who truly believed his word could override the Constitution, the policy manuals, the cameras, everything. He believed it because nobody had ever forced him to test that belief against a hard replay of his own behavior. I relaxed my shoulders deliberately and nodded once. "Okay," I said. "For the record, I'm not refusing anything." I'm invoking my right to remain silent about anything that could be used against me, and I'm choosing to keep my cameras on. I'll provide my documents under protest, and I want that noted." His eyebrows shot up. "Under protest?" "Yes, sir." Something about the "sir" soothed him a little, like I'd finally hit the note he wanted, even if the words weren't right. He held out his hand. "License," he said. Slowly, with exaggerated care, I pulled my wallet from my pocket, keeping both hands visible. I slid my license out and held it toward the small opening at the top of the window. He snatched it out of my fingers, barely glancing at the name, before passing it back to Delgado, who had returned to stand nearby again. "Run him," he ordered. "See what creative history we're working with." Delgado nodded and headed for the cruiser. As soon as he was gone, Halpern leaned in again, voice low. "You think that camera's gonna save you? You think some grainy video's gonna outweigh my report? I've been doing this 25 years. You know how many smart-mouth truckers I've put in cuffs?" "I don't, but the cameras will know how you talk to them." He stared at me for a long second, then smiled, a slow, cold thing that didn't touch his eyes. "Keep telling yourself that," he said. "Out here, driver, we make the rules. You're just passing through." I didn't answer. I let the silence wrap around his words, let the mics soak them in. Because one day soon, I knew those exact sentences would be played back frame by frame, paused, rewound, analyzed. Not by me and not by him, but by people who understand that the law isn't whatever a tired sergeant on a dark road decides it is. In that moment, my plan was simple: survive the stop, preserve the footage, and make damn sure his "we make the rules here" line didn't die out on that shoulder. It was only later I'd realized just how close his version of the story came to burying mine, and how fast the clock was already ticking on the only witnesses I had that couldn't be intimidated. 3 little blinking lights and 72 hours before they started erasing themselves. Delgado sat in the cruiser with my license, radio murmuring inside the cab like a wasp trapped in a jar. I watched him through the mirror as he typed something into the onboard computer, his face glowing pale blue from the screen. His brow kept tightening, like he wasn't finding what he expected. He looked up at Halpern once, hesitant. Halpern waved him off with a flick of the wrist, still too busy looming beside my door like a shadow that forgot how to move. "You ever been arrested?" asked Halpern suddenly. I kept my eyes forward. "No, sir." "You sure?" he said, mocking surprise. "You seem awfully confident in how tonight's gonna go for someone with a clean record." "I'm confident because I haven't broken any laws." His jaw flexed. "Now you broke one the moment you started arguing with lawful commands." "That's not a crime." "Now it is." I didn't react. It wasn't fear he wanted. Fear bored him. It was submission, and that I wasn't giving. He leaned in until the brim of his hat nearly touched my window. "Drivers like you," he said quietly, "are the reason guys like me get stuck on these back roads babysitting grown men who don't know when to shut their mouths." I didn't answer. The silence worked better than words. He slapped the glass hard enough to rattle the dash, then stepped back like he needed space from his own temper. Delgado's door opened behind him. "Sarge," he called softly. "Return came back clean. License valid, no warrants, no priors." Halpern didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even acknowledge the result. Instead, he kept staring at me with this simmering frustration that didn't have anywhere to go except more escalation. "Run it again," he snapped. Delgado blinked. "It already, I said run it again." The kid nodded and scrambled back into the cruiser.
Halpern knelt slightly to meet my eye level. "You see," he said, "when folks like you play games with us, it raises red flags. Because innocent people don't mind following orders. Innocent people don't sit there quoting laws at me. Innocent people don't need 3 cameras rolling unless they're hiding something." I breathed slow. Or unless they've met officers before who tried to write a narrative that didn't match reality. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. You think you're dealing with those guys? No, you're dealing with me, and I don't let people walk all over me. I'm not walking anywhere, I said. His smile soured. You keep being clever. See how far it gets you. I glanced at the forward dash cam. Its tiny LED blinked steady, faithfully capturing his threat. The cab cam, mounted near the visor, was angled perfectly to show the tension across his face. My phone caught the close-up details. Pores, sweat, the way the corners of his mouth twitched when he got angry. He noticed my eyes drifting and scoffed. Delete that when we're done. No, sir. What was that? I said no. His face flushed, a hot, uneven shade of red creeping up from his neck to his cheeks. Delgado stepped out again. Sarge, this system confirmed the same thing. Clean record. Halpern finally turned, slow as molasses. Did I tell you to talk? No, sir. Then shut it. Delgado shrank a little, shoulders folding inward. I felt a twinge of sympathy for him. Not enough to forget he'd threatened me earlier, but enough to know he was trapped too, just on the other side of the badge. Halpern stood up straight. Driver, step out. Final direction. Not without a clear articulation of suspicion, I said. He stared at me for a long moment. I could almost see the thoughts turning. Anger, humiliation, stubborn pride all welded into one dangerous mixture. Then he took a breath and put on a mockingly calm tone, dripping with sarcasm. All right, you want articulable suspicion? Fine. He turned toward the front of my truck and began sweeping his flashlight dramatically across the grill. Suspicion you're impaired. Suspicion you're transporting stolen goods. Suspicion you're falsifying logs. Suspicion your load isn't secure. Suspicion your brake pressure is uneven. Suspicion you're, a terrorist. Delgado flinched at that last one. I raised an eyebrow. A terrorist, Sergeant? You think that's funny? He barked. You carrying electronics? Electronics can be detonators, wires, batteries, could be anything. Manifest is right behind you, I said, nodding toward the sealed envelope in the dash slot. That manifest means jack until I verify it, and you're not helping verify anything sitting in there like a scared rabbit. I'm not scared, I said. He leaned in again. Then get out. I stayed still. He exhaled sharply and stepped away, pacing in a short, furious line. Finally, he turned and barked, Delgado, get me the citation book. Delgado opened his door. Which one? All of them. Yes, Sarge. While the kid dug around the cruiser, Halpern pointed his finger straight at my dash cam. You're going to regret pointing that thing at me. You think it scares me? But it doesn't. Cameras don't tell the whole story. My report does. And I've written hundreds. I let the silence answer again. He hated that. What's your problem, huh? Why can't you just do what you're told? Why do you got to make everything a Supreme Court challenge? You think you're smarter than me? You think reading a few blogs gives you authority? I think the Constitution gives everyone authority. He stopped dead. The wind was the only sound for 2 long seconds. Then he said, Get out. I didn't move. He snapped. Okay, that's it. Delgado, put him down as refusing. Tow truck's en route. He's not leaving in that rig tonight. Sergeant, I said quietly, I'm willing to step out if you state a specific crime you believe I've committed. His eyes narrowed, then sharpened with a sudden idea. Fine, there is a crime. I felt my fingers tighten around the wheel. He was about to invent something. You're impeding a police investigation, delaying officers. That's obstruction. I shook my head. That's not obstruction. He slammed the window with his palm again, hard enough to sting the glass. I say it is! Delgado stopped writing for a second, startled. I stayed calm. Sergeant, please stop hitting my truck? Or what? He growled. You're going to call the sheriff on me? You're going to tell my boss? You think anyone's going to believe me over me? This is my county, driver. My road. I decide what goes." Little did he know that in less than a week, his face would be paused on laptops across the country, his voice dissected frame by someone with 1 million subscribers. But right then, in that moment, he thought he was untouchable. Delgado returned, the citation books tucked under his arm. Sarge, which statute do you want to cite for the obstruction?" Halpern blinked, then frowned. "What?" "Which statute?" he repeated softly, flipping through pages. "There are different sections for obstruction, interference, refusal. Just need to know which one so I can check the code number." The sergeant stared at him like the kid had grown a second head. "You questioning me now too?" he snapped. "No, sir, I just—" "Write what I tell you." Delgado swallowed. "Yes, sir." He lowered his head and began writing, but his pen hovered. He didn't know what to put. I could see the conflict in his eyes, even through the reflection. He didn't want to fabricate, but he didn't want to defy Halpern. "Driver," Halpern said suddenly, "if you want this to end without cuffs, here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn off your cameras, step out, hand over your paperwork, and stop running your mouth. You do that, maybe I let you go with a warning." "That would be nice, but I won't turn off my cameras." His face twitched with fury. "Why? Why are you so obsessed with filming us?" "Because it protects everyone," I said. "You and me." "I don't need protecting," he snapped. "I need compliance." The rookie tried again, softly. "Sarge, the driver's right about one thing. State code says—" Halpern spun. "Don't finish that sentence." Delgado froze solid. I watched him fold in on himself again, that young face tightening with tension he didn't know how to carry yet. Halpern turned back to me with icy calm, like he'd decided to switch tactics. "Fine," he said. "You want transparency? Here's transparency. I think you're hiding something. I think you parked here to do something illegal. I think any reasonable officer would want to search that cab. And since you're acting suspicious, I think we have enough to detain you until we figure out what's going on." "You don't," I said gently. "Suspicion of what, exactly?" He grinned, ugly and wide. "Suspicion of you. That's enough." I didn't answer. I was done feeding him lines he could twist. Instead, I reached slowly toward the glove box, deliberate, exaggerated movement, and retrieved the trip envelope containing my manifest, bill of lading, and load details. He tensed like I might pull a weapon. "Hey, what are you reaching for?" "My manifest," I said calmly. "Load documentation." He watched my hand like it was a snake, then snatched the envelope when I held it out. He flipped through it without actually reading anything, then tossed it onto his cruiser's hood like garbage. "That doesn't tell me anything," he muttered. "It tells you everything," I said. He ignored me. Instead, he pointed at the ground beside my door. "Out, now. You and I are going to have a conversation away from your little cameras." "No," I said. "Anything you want to say can be said right here." His face darkened like a storm cloud. "You think this is a negotiation? You think you call the shots?" He stepped closer, voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "One more refusal, and I'm yanking you out of that cab myself." "Sergeant," I said quietly, "if you put hands on me without lawful cause, that's assault." He froze. Delgado's head snapped up. A single cicada buzzed in the dark field beside us. Then Halpern laughed. A single sharp bark. "Assault? You think you can scream assault after resisting orders? You're going to look real stupid when that body cam footage shows you attacking me." I tilted my head. "Your body cam's on?" He didn't answer. That silence was louder than a confession. I said nothing more. Didn't need to. The camera lights blinked. My phone glowed. The tiny cab mic kept recording his breath, his threats, his contradictions. This wasn't just evidence anymore. This was a slow unraveling, and he couldn't stop pulling the thread. The wind picked up across the fields, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant rain. Halpern planted himself at my door like a man daring the world to challenge him.
Delgado lingered by the rear cruiser, hunched over the citation pad, pen hovering uselessly above the paper, like it knew better than he did what was happening here. Halpern took a slow breath, chest rising high under his vest, and then he leaned in with a voice meant to intimidate, not communicate. "Driver, I'm telling you one last time, get out." I kept my voice steady. "Sergeant, if you believe you have legal grounds for a search or arrest, state them." His jaw clenched. "Fine, I'll give you legal." He pointed wildly at my windshield. "You're illegally parked." "No, I'm not." "You're obstructing the flow of traffic." "No, I'm not." "You're loitering with intent." "Intent to what?"
He paused, nostrils flaring, searching his mind for a statute he'd never actually read. "Intent to... I don't know. Intent to commit something," he snapped. "You don't get to demand definitions from me." Actually, he cut me off with a growl. "Stop talking." He stepped back and motioned toward Delgado. "Get me the code book." Delgado's shoulders slumped. "Sarge, the code book's digital now." "Then get the damn tablet." "Yes, sir." The kid rushed to the cruiser again, rummaging through the console until he found the department-issued tablet. He carried it back like it weighed 100 pounds. Halpern snatched it out of his hands and swiped angrily at the screen. "This thing never loads right," he muttered. "They expect us to enforce laws with a toy." Delgado stared at the ground. "Maybe if we just—" "Shut up," Halpern hissed. "I know what I'm looking for." But the truth was written across his face like a busted neon sign. He was floundering. He didn't know which statute to pick because none of them matched what he was doing. He jabbed the screen again. The tablet beeped angrily and flashed red. "Piece of garbage," he spat. "You know what? Forget the code. I'll write it in later." I raised my eyebrows. "You'll write the law in later?" His head snapped up. "You don't tell me how to write my reports. I put in whatever makes the case make sense." My cameras caught every syllable. Halpern saw the slow blink I gave him, and something cracked in his expression. "Don't you start with that 'I got you on camera' look," he snarled. "You think one stupid video is going to outweigh my documentation? I'll bury you in paperwork so thick you'll choke on it." He stepped closer again, hands on my doorframe. "This is going to go how I say it goes." "Sergeant, just to be clear, are you ordering me out because you believe I committed a crime or because you're upset I'm filming you?" His eyes narrowed. "Yes." That wasn't a yes or no question. It was to me. He straightened and shouted over his shoulder, "Delgado, get the canine unit." Delgado froze. "Sarge, what? A canine unit? For what?" "For cause." "What cause?" "'Cause I said so." Delgado's pen dropped to the pavement. "Sarge, we can't call dogs unless—" "Are you arguing with me?" Halpern roared, marching toward him. The kid backed up a full step. "No, sir, it's against policy unless we—" Halpern got in his face. "Say policy again." Delgado swallowed hard. I'll call them." That's what I thought. The kid reached for his radio with shaking fingers. I watched Halpern turn back toward my cab with a triumphant sneer, like he'd just proven dominance over both me and his junior. But something in his swagger was off now. It lacked coherence. It looked forced, like he'd realized he couldn't justify anything he had done, so he leaned harder into bluster to fill the cracks. "You just made this worse for yourself," he said. "Dogs will hit on something. They always do. And when they do, I get full search access. You want to tell me now what you're hiding, or do we let the dogs find it?" "I'm not hiding anything," I said, "and you know that." He snorted. "Everyone's hiding something." Behind him, Delgado had the radio halfway to his mouth, but he wasn't talking. He was staring at Halpern like he'd just watched someone burn a rule book in front of him. Sarge, we don't have a reason for dogs. Halpern spun again. You will say the magic words when you call them. Nervous driver. That's all they need. Delgado hesitated. Now, Halpern barked. The rookie flinched and pressed the button. Canine unit, this is Unit 3. Requesting, he looked at Halpern helplessly. Halpern mouthed the words exaggeratedly. Nervous driver. Requesting a dog check. I felt my heart kick harder. A dog sweep on a commercial rig is a nightmare, even when you're clean. They scratch the paint, they hop on steps, they slam their paws against the doors, and if the dog alerts, whether real or accidental, you're pulled out, cuffed, everything searched. And Halpern knew it. That'll do, he said, satisfied. I spoke slowly. Sergeant, you're calling a dog because I asked you to state probable cause? He shrugged. No, I'm calling a dog because I feel like it. He said it so casually, like he was ordering fries at a drive-thru. That's when the absurdity of it all hit me. This man genuinely believed that feeling like doing something was indistinguishable from having legal justification to do it. You're escalating something that didn't need escalating, I said. He smirked. That's your opinion. No, that's what's happening. He stepped close again, voice hushed and venomous. You know what drives me nuts? Guys like you pretending you know my job. You don't know a damn thing about the law. You don't know how dangerous these stops are. You don't know how many drivers take swings at us. You don't know. I know you haven't stated a crime. Because I don't need to yet, he barked. That's not accurate. Stop saying that! Behind him, Delgado had drifted closer to the passenger side of my truck, shining his flashlight inside the windows like he was searching for ghosts. He looked rattled, like he was starting to realize this wasn't normal. Halpern kept pacing, getting louder, angrier, more erratic. You're making this harder than it has to be, he growled. If you would just obey, we'd be done by now. But no, you want to ask questions, you want to film, you want to play lawyer. Congratulations, you bought yourself a whole world of trouble. He turned abruptly and shouted over his shoulder, Delgado, what's taking so long with that citation? Delgado looked down at the half-blank page. I still don't know what to cite him for. Write something. But Sarge, write anything. Delgado didn't move. Halpern stormed toward him, getting in his face again. You defying me? You got something you want to say? Sergeant, I don't want to write something false. The world seemed to pause. Even the cicadas quieted. Halpern stared at the kid like he couldn't believe his ears. Then he stepped in so close their vests nearly touched. Delgado, he said softly, if you ever say the word false in front of me again, I will bury you in night shifts until you begging to quit. You hear me? Yes, sir. Good. Now write the ticket. Delgado's shoulders slumped like he'd been punched. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, not just because of what was happening to me, but because I knew I was watching a rookie get warped in real time, bent under the weight of someone else's ego and fear. Delgado scribbled something, anything, onto the ticket. Halpern turned back toward my cab with a victorious swagger. See? Easy. I stared at him. You're traumatizing your own officer. He blinked. What'd you say? I said, you're teaching him the worst possible version of policing. Who asked you? Nobody, but it's true. His face flushed. Oh, you're going to lecture me about policing now. You, a trucker. Yes. He paused, thrown off by my confidence. Truckers deal with cops more than most people. We see the good ones and the bad ones. You're showing him how to be the second kind. Halpern's laugh was sharp and empty. You think he cares about your opinion? He knows who's in charge. Delgado didn't look like he knew that anymore. He looked ashamed. Halpern stepped back toward my window and tapped the door again. Out, right now, dogs are coming. I stayed put. Delgado whispered, Sarge, Canine's 20 minutes out. That's fine, Halpern said without breaking eye contact with me. We'll wait. 20 minutes. 20 minutes of him monologuing, threatening, digging deeper, making my footage stronger. This stop was becoming a slow-motion disaster for him, and he couldn't even see it. He leaned in, voice dropping low. Let me tell you something, driver. The camera won't save you. The internet won't save you. You think your little YouTube buddies are going to ride in on a white horse? No. When we finish tonight, you'll wish you never hit that record button. I breathed in. Sergeant, if you're confident you're doing everything right, why are you worried about the cameras? He froze. For the first time all night, he had no answer. And in that tiny silence, something shifted. Not in him, in Delgado. The rookie's eyes widened like some small part of him finally registered what my cameras were catching and what that meant. Sergeant, maybe we... Halpern snapped back to life. Not another word. Delgado shut down instantly, and I realized something important. This wasn't a power trip anymore. This was desperation. Halpern had crossed lines he couldn't uncross, said things he couldn't unsay, given commands he couldn't justify, and the deeper he went, the more he needed to control the outcome. He needed me out of the truck. He needed the cameras off. He needed the narrative rewritten before anyone else saw it. But there was something he hadn't realized yet. Something big. Something fatal to his whole approach. Every second he kept talking was another nail in the coffin of his own credibility. And I had 72 hours to save that coffin before the Dashcam started overwriting it. His threats weren't the danger. Time was.
I sat there, hands on the wheel, feeling the seconds drip by. 20 minutes for the dog, 72 hours on the Dashcam. God knew how long before any lawyer or oversight board even heard my name. Halpern shifted his weight, finally noticing the smaller details inside the cab. His eyes tracked from the Dashcam to the cab cam above my head, then down to my phone, still snug in its rubber mount with the red recording dot glowing bright on the screen. "What is that?" he snapped, pointing at the phone. "My phone," I said. "You recording on that too?" "Yes, sir." His gaze snapped up to the cab cam. "And that?" "Cab camera. Been running the whole time." He stepped back half a step. Just one. But it was like watching a plate shift under a mountain. His voice changed. Not softer, but thinner. Like some of the air had leaked out of his authority.
You got 3 cameras on us? He asked. Yes, sir. Audio and video. He looked over his shoulder at Delgado, who suddenly seemed intensely interested in the gravel at his feet. How long they been rolling? Halpern asked. Since before you pulled up, I said. He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. He stopped, recalibrated mid-sentence. You better hope you didn't catch yourself resisting my directions. I didn't, I said, but I definitely caught you. His jaw clenched so hard the muscle jumped like a twitching cable. For a second I thought he might explode again. Instead, the radio on his shoulder crackled with a burst of static, and a dispatcher's voice came through. Unit 3, status. K9 reporting delayed ETA. You still need them. He snatched the mic. Stand by, he said, never taking his eyes off me. He released the transmit button and glared. You post that footage, I swear. The radio interrupted with another burst. Unit 3, be advised. Domestic disturbance in progress at County Road 9 and Miller. All available units respond. Are you clear for backup? Halpern's face twisted. The universe had terrible timing. For him. He stabbed the transmit button. Dispatch, Unit 3 is currently engaged on a traffic stop with a non-compliant commercial driver. K9 en route. There was a small pause on the other end. Copy, Unit 3. Other units tied up. If you can clear, we need you at Miller. Advise." He let go of the mic and swore under his breath. That was the first time he looked at me like something other than prey. He was doing math. He had hours invested in this bluff, and now he had somebody else's crisis in his ear. He turned toward Delgado. "Well?" he snapped. Delgado looked genuinely torn. "Sarge, the domestic is—" "I know what it is," Halpern barked. "Dispatch says all available," Delgado said quietly. Halpern stared at him, then spun back to me. "This isn't over." "I'm sure it isn't." He sucked air in through his teeth. "Driver, here's what's going to happen," he said, talking fast now. "You're getting a citation for obstruction and illegal stopping on a roadway. You're going to sign it. You're going to keep that footage to yourself. You are not going to post this anywhere. If you do, we'll seize it as part of an ongoing investigation. You understand?" "I understand you're saying that." He hated that answer. "Delgado, ticket, now." The rookie hurried closer, tearing the slip from the pad with unsteady hands. He gave it one last look like it might bite him, then held it up toward my window. "Sir, I need your signature," he mumbled. "What's the charge?" I asked, reading the top. Obstruction of an officer and improper stopping on a roadway," Delgado said, voice barely more than a whisper. "That's not what happened." "It's what we're writing," Halpern cut in. "Sign it. It's not an admission of guilt, just a promise to appear. Unless, of course, you'd rather go to jail tonight." I stared at the ticket, then at him. I knew my options weren't good in that moment. Fight on the shoulder and maybe end up in cuffs, or take his paper under protest, and fight back with the one thing he had underestimated: proof. "Can I note that I'm signing under protest?" I asked. "You can note whatever the hell you want. Sign." I took the pen Delgado offered and very slowly signed my name, writing "under protest" in clear block letters. Delgado's eyes flicked to the words. Something like respect or maybe just relief passed over his face for half a heartbeat. Halpern snatched the ticket back. "Driver, here's what's going to happen," he said, talking fast now. "I'm letting you go tonight. That's more grace than you deserve after how you've acted. You will pull back onto the road when I tell you, and you will leave this county without so much as touching that record button again." "The cameras are automatic," I said. "They'll keep recording." He stepped closer one last time, tapping my mirror with 2 fingers, a little fake friendly gesture that somehow felt more threatening than all his shouting. Then he walked back toward his cruiser, calling into dispatch that he was clearing the stop. Delgado hesitated near my step, his eyes meeting mine through the glass. "Sir, you drive safe," he said softly. There was something in his tone that didn't belong to Halpern at all. "Have a good night, Officer Delgado." He nodded once quick, then hurried after his sergeant. They pulled away in a storm of gravel. Blue lights vanished down the dark stretch of road, turning off around the bend as they headed toward Miller and whatever waited there. The field fell silent. Just me, my rig, and 3 little blinking LEDs. I sat there for a minute, letting my heartbeat settle. The adrenaline hung around like a fog, slow to burn off. My hands trembled once, twice, then finally steadied on the wheel. I talked out loud to the empty cab for the benefit of the recordings. "Time is now," I glanced at the dash clock, "22:47, County Road 14, mile marker I'm estimating about 19. Sergeant Halpern's just cleared the stop after issuing a citation for obstruction and improper stopping on a roadway. I've been told not to post any footage, threatened with seizure of my cameras and arrest if I don't comply. I'm going to comply with traffic laws, but I will not be deleting anything." The cab cam captured the resolve in my face. The dash cam captured the empty shoulder. My phone captured the little tremor in my voice that told the truth. I was rattled. You can be calm and rattled at the same time. That's something a lot of these tough guy sergeants don't understand. I pulled back onto the road smooth and slow, letting the turbo whistle me back into motion. The night swallowed me up again, but it didn't feel like before. The road wasn't just asphalt now. It was evidence. I drove another 40 miles to a truck stop that still had a few open spots along the back fence. I parked, set my brakes, and let the engine cool. My logbook ticked into off-duty, but my night was far from over, because the real race had just started. 72 hours. That's how long my Dashcam allocated for storage before it started overwriting the oldest footage. The cab cam gave me a little more. The phone had whatever space I'd freed up last week. It wasn't enough. Not for something like this. The first thing I did was pull my laptop from the side compartment and plug it into the inverter. The hum of the small fans sounded like a lifeline. I popped the micro SD card from the dash cam with my thumbnail, careful not to drop it in the chaos of coffee cups and paperwork. Then I slid it into the adapter and waited for the files to load. The screen flooded with file names, date-stamped, time-stamped, neatly lined up like little soldiers. I sorted them, heart-thumping when I saw the block that covered the stop. There it was. 18 minutes of raw, unblinking truth. I dragged the file to my external hard drive, one I kept strictly for dash footage. Progress bar crawled across the screen like syrup. 30%, 50, 70. Come on. 90. Done. I exhaled for what felt like the first time since the lights went on behind me. I did the same with the cab cam footage, then the phone file I'd captured. I backed them up twice, one on the external drive, one in a cloud folder I paid for after watching too many horror stories about police seizing physical devices. By the time I finished, it was after midnight. The truck stop had gone quiet except for the occasional hiss of an air dryer and the low murmur of a late-night radio show drifting from someone else's cab. I sat back in my seat, laptop balanced on my knees, and pressed play. Watching it from the outside was worse than living it. Seeing Halpern's face fill my windshield, hearing the way his voice changed when he talked about making the rules, watching Delgado physically shrinking every time he was told to shut up, it hit me in the gut in a way adrenaline didn't let me feel in the moment. There was no nuance on that screen. No misunderstanding. No, maybe he didn't mean it that way. He meant every word. Especially when he said, "Out here, my word is the law." I paused the video on that frame and took a screenshot. Then another when he said, "We make the rules here." Then one more when he hissed about seizing my footage and burying me in paperwork. Each still felt like a nail. I thought about just posting it myself, uploading raw footage to some random channel, letting the internet feast. Maybe it would go viral, maybe it would die in the algorithm. Hard to know. But I've been watching rights audit channels for a while now. Guys who didn't just post videos, they broke them down. They cited laws, dissected behavior, graded officers like they were students in a civics class they'd never bothered to attend. And one channel in particular had a knack for turning a single interaction into a full-blown accountability event. So I opened my email and dug through an old note I'd saved with their contact info. There it was, an email address for potential cases. I wrote, "Subject, traffic stop. Sergeant says, we make the rules here. Threatens arrest over recording."
My name is Redacted, long-haul trucker, clean record. On date around 22:30, I was stopped on County Route 14 in State by Sergeant Halpern and Officer Delgado. They boxed in my rig, refused to state a specific crime, threatened arrest for filming, and tried to manufacture obstruction. I had 3 cameras recording. I've backed up the footage in multiple places. I'm attaching a sample and can share full files via link if you're interested. I'm also planning to contest the citation and file a complaint, but I wanted an outside breakdown first because I know departments sometimes lose evidence. Thanks for what you do on your channel. Whether you use it or not, I appreciate any guidance. I attached a lower resolution copy of the stop, just enough to show what happened without crashing their inbox, and hit send. Then I opened another window and searched up a civil rights lawyer I'd heard interviewed on a trucking podcast. Cassidy, based 3 states over, but licensed where I was stopped. Her website had a simple contact form and a phone number. I left a voicemail that night, voice steady but tired, laying out the basics. "I have clear video," I said, "and I think this might be more than just a bad stop. I think it might be a pattern." By the time I closed the laptop, my eyes felt like sandpaper. I crawled into the bunk, the hum of the refrigerator the only thing pushing back the silence. Sleep came in short, choppy waves. Every time I drifted off, I'd see the sergeant's face at my window again, hear him saying, "We make the rules here." Morning brought a different kind of light, less harsh, more honest. My phone buzzed before I'd even finished my first truck stop coffee. It was an email from Cassidy. "Got your message. Saw the clip. Call me as soon as you're free." I stepped out of the cab, walked toward the far edge of the lot where idling engines faded into background noise, and dialed. She picked up on the second ring, voice crisp, no nonsense. "This is Cassidy. Hey, this is the trucker who emailed you about Sergeant Halpern." "Right," she said. "I watched your video 3 times this morning. I'm going to be very clear with you because I don't like wasting anybody's time. What I saw is bad, not the worst I've ever seen, but clearly outside policy and brushing right up against constitutional violations. The threats around recording, the refusal to state reasonable suspicion, the attempt to manufacture pretext for a canine unit, it's all on tape." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "So I'm not crazy?" "No," she said. "You're not. You're also smart for backing that footage up. First things first, contest the ticket within the deadline. We'll file that. Second, we file a formal complaint with the department. Third, we submit a public records request for their body cam and dash cam from that stop." "You think they'll release it?" I asked. "They'll stall, but they know the law, and if they don't release it voluntarily, that becomes part of the story too." I hesitated. "There's something else. I sent the footage to a rights audit YouTube channel, the breakdown type." Cassidy didn't miss a beat. "Good. You're okay with that?" She sighed. "Departments behave differently when they know someone's watching besides themselves. As long as they blur out anything that needs blurring and you're not violating any privacy laws, public scrutiny can be a powerful motivator. Just understand, once it's out, it's out. You'll get attention." "I'm okay with that," I said, "if it keeps him from doing this to someone who doesn't have cameras." There was a pause on the line. When she spoke again, her voice had softened just a touch. "You did good out there. You stayed calm. You didn't give him what he was fishing for. That matters." We talked logistics. She emailed me authorization forms and a representation agreement. I signed, scanned, and sent them back from the truck stop fax counter like it was 1997 all over again. While I waited, my phone pinged again. New email, different sender. Subject line, "We make the rules here. This is going on the channel." My stomach flipped. The rights audit host, voice I'd listened to 100 times while rolling down lonely highways, had written back. Short and to the point. "This is one of the clearest examples of we make the rules attitude I've seen in months. The fact you had 3 angles is gold. I'm cutting a breakdown now. It'll go up within the few days. I'll send you the link before it's live. Thank you for recording and keeping your cool. A lot of folks are going to learn from this." I sat there in that plastic chair by the fax machine, the fluorescence buzzing overhead, and felt something shift inside me. Last night, I was one man on a dark road with 2 badges and a whole lot of threats. Now I had a lawyer, a video file backed up 3 different ways, and a bigger spotlight pointed at that shoulder than Halpern could have imagined when he told me he made the rules. The next week moved fast in slow motion. Cassidy filed the ticket contest and the formal complaint. She CC'd me on letters that quoted case law I'd only ever heard in passing, suddenly transformed from vague, "I know my rights," into specific, undeniable citations. She requested body cam, dash cam, dispatch logs, and policy manuals. The rights audit host sent me a preview link to the video. Cops say, "We make the rules during bogus stop." Full breakdown. I watched it, parked behind a warehouse, waiting for a dock door to open. Hearing someone else narrate my night was strange. Surreal, even. He paused the video when Halpern said, "We make the rules," and dropped in actual statutes and Supreme Court quotes. He broke down what reasonable suspicion really meant, what obstruction actually covered, what citizens are allowed to record. He pointed out every time Halpern contradicted himself, every moment Delgado looked uncomfortable, every policy line that had been twisted into whatever was convenient in that moment. He gave Halpern a failing grade. He gave me an A for staying calm. He ended with, "If this looks like how your local police department operates, you have a problem. Share this." And people did. The video caught fire. Comments poured in from other truckers, from former cops, from civil rights nerds that lived and breathed this stuff. They time-stamped their favorite lines. They clipped out the "we make the rules" moment and turned it into memes and short clips that got their own views. Within 48 hours, the department could not pretend it hadn't seen it. Chief Rowlings released a stiff, carefully worded statement to the local paper. "We are aware of a video circulating online depicting one of our sergeants during a traffic stop. The department takes all allegations of misconduct and has initiated an internal review." Internal review. I'd learned enough by that point to know that phrase could mean anything from "we'll bury this in a file cabinet until people forget" to "heads are going to roll." Cassidy kept me grounded. "Don't get too excited yet," she said on the phone, "but the fact they responded publicly this quickly is encouraging." And my public records requests just got a lot harder to ignore. 2 weeks later, we got the body cam and Dashcam files. If anything, they were worse for Halpern than my footage. His own mic caught him muttering between exchanges, calling me another YouTube clown, telling Delgado, "Doesn't matter what he says, I'll just write it up how I need it." At one point, off to the side, he said, "Policy says we can't do half of what we have to do out here. That's why we don't worry about policy." He'd said the quiet part loud, and now it was preserved with the department's own equipment. Cassidy packaged everything and sent a notice of intent to sue for civil rights violations, unlawful detention, retaliation for exercising my right to record, threats of seizure without due process, attempted fabrication of charges. They could have dug in. They could have fought it out in court for months, maybe years. Instead, they blinked. Maybe it was the video's view count ticking past 700,000. Maybe it was the local news picking it up. Maybe it was the union deciding Halpern wasn't worth the headache. Whatever it was, within 3 months of that night, I got a call from Cassidy. "They're settling," she said. I was parked at a rest area watching the sun slide down behind a line of pines when she told me the number. It wasn't lottery money. It wasn't enough to buy a fleet, but it was enough to make my truck payments feel lighter for a while. Enough to put something away for my kids. Enough to sting the department's budget more than any warning letter ever could. "There's more," she said. "They're also agreeing to policy revisions, new training modules on citizens' right to record, clear language about when canine units can be called, and Halpern." My grip tightened on the phone. What about him? Demoted, removed from field supervision. No more sergeant, no more training rookies, and according to the document they sent, any future promotions are off the table while this stays on his record, which, for the record, is permanent. I stared at the trees, the knot in my chest loosening for the first time since the stop. "Delgado? Mandatory retraining," she said, "and he's already requested a transfer. Make of that what you will." I nodded slowly, though she couldn't see it. "So, rules changed then?" She laughed softly. "Some of them, enough to matter." IA's official summary, once it was finally made public, didn't mince words. "Sergeant Halpern displayed a misunderstanding of department policy and applicable law, demonstrated unprofessional conduct, and created an unnecessary escalation during a traffic encounter. They recommended discipline. The chief followed it. the IA Rights Audit Channel did a follow-up video. Update: we make the rules here, Sergeant. Demoted after viral stop. They played my face again, frozen in the cab. They played his face, frozen in anger. And this time the caption under the still frame of his badge didn't say Sergeant. It just said Officer. Even my own company took notice. Safety called me in, not for a lecture, but for a quiet conversation. We watched the video, my safety manager said across the desk. We're proud of how you handled it. You did everything right. No policy violations on your end. We're adding a section to our new driver orientation about recording interactions and staying calm. We'd like your permission to use your story, sanitized obviously, as a training example. Sure, I said, as long as you don't make me sound like a superhero. I was just scared and stubborn. That's kind of what we like about it, he said. Word spread. Other drivers started getting dash cams installed if they didn't have them already. Some reached out to me at truck stops or on the radio. You the guy from that Rules Here video? I said, yeah. Man, they grinned, shaking their heads. You kept your cool. I don't know if I could have done that. I didn't feel cool. I just knew the camera was watching. The thing nobody tells you about karma is it doesn't always come with trumpets and thunder. Sometimes it looks like a demotion letter typed in a tired HR office. Sometimes it looks like a mandatory training PowerPoint about rights that should have been understood from day one. Sometimes it looks like a quiet settlement check that, on its own, won't fix the system, but proves the system can be pushed. Do I think Officer Halpern woke up a better man after all this? I don't know. Do I care? Less than I thought I would. Because this was never just about him. It was about the next driver he pulled over, the next rookie he tried to teach, the next time he felt like saying, we make the rules here, and had to stop himself because some tiny voice in the back of his mind remembered watching his own face get dissected on a YouTube channel with 1 million views. As for me, I'm still out here, chasing white lines, still hauling other people's freight from one place to another. My cameras are still mounted, little lights blinking away like faithful fireflies. My dash has a small sticker now, just under the CB. It says, the law is not a suggestion. Sometimes when a patrol car settles in behind me for a few miles, I feel that old tightness in my chest. I check my speed, check my mirrors, check my cameras, and I remind myself that fear isn't the point. The point is accountability. The point is that on a dark road where one man thinks his word is the law, a few simple blinking lights can disagree and win. And look, if this story helped you, fired you up, or taught you even one thing about protecting yourself out here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, tap that like, and share this with somebody who might need a little armor in their pocket the next time blue lights hit their mirrors. Stories like this only make a difference when folks hear them. And while you're here, drop a quick comment down below and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing the miles on this kind of thing. Truck stops, dinner tables, living rooms, whole towns chiming in from all over. It reminds me this road stretches a lot farther than any one county line. So if you're watching this, if you've made it all the way through this story, here's what I'd tell you like I'd tell another driver over bad coffee at a truck stop. Know your rights. Get a camera. Keep your voice level. Let them talk. Because out there on the shoulder, with your livelihood on the line, you don't have to shout to stand your ground. Sometimes, all you have to do is press record and let the truth do its job.